Whatever you're doing.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started and call this meeting to order at 6:01. Welcome to the February 8th special board meeting, or special meeting of the West Turlock Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. The members of the public attending virtually will have the opportunity to provide public comment via the webinar or phone features. For those participating via Zoom, please click the raise hand button on your screen. For those participating via phone, please dial *9 on your keypad. If everyone would, please stand for the flag salute. Ready, salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Ms. Land, will you call the roll of the board members, please?
Thank you. Alternate Director Abram.
Here.
Alternate Director Casey.
Here.
Director Chiesa.
Here.
Director Crooker.
Here.
Director Espinoza.
Here.
Director Ochoa.
Here.
And Vice Chair Duritzma.
Here. That is 7. That is a quorum. So we'll continue on. Public comment period. Interested persons in the audience are welcome to introduce any topic within the agency's jurisdiction. No action may be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except that the board may briefly respond to comments, refer the matter to staff, or request it be placed on a future agenda. At this time, do we have any comments from the public? I don't see any here. Anything online?
There are no hands raised online.
Okay, great. We'll move on. Staff updates. First up, Michael Clipper for the budget update.
Everyone, for the West Turlock Subbasin R account, beginning January 1st, we had $1,176,659.89. Nothing was deposited or taken out in January. Then for the basin account, which is the east and west, same situation. We had started with January 1st of $840,851.54 and ended the month with that.
Great.
Questions?
Questions for Mr. Clipper? Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And now we will go to Michael number 2, Michael Cook, for a TAC committee update.
Good evening, Chair Duritzma and directors. The Technical Advisory Committee meets monthly, and we've met 4 times since your last meeting. In October, we provided a letter of support to TID for an application for a Water Smart grant to help with their lateral 5.5 regulating reservoir. We also sent a letter to state officials asking that Sigma funding be fully funded in the state budget. There was some concern it would be cut as part of the budget cuts. And we also received an update from the Valley Water Collaborative regarding the nitrate control program and drinking water assistance program that they're working on. In November, we authorized Todd Groundwater to prepare the annual report, which is due on April 1st. We also reviewed the fall 2023 water level measurements, and we have a subgroup of the advisory committee working with Todd Groundwater on the annual report. At that time, we found out we weren't going to receive the climate change grant that we'd applied for, that we'd applied in conjunction with East Turlock, and we'd hoping to use that money to help us develop a drinking well mitigation program. So unfortunately, we did not get that funding. We found out that in November, and I remember emailing this group at that time. This year, not much activity, but in January we met, and you'll find out later on your agenda, but we have lost our vice chair. He's been new assignments at the City of Modesto, so we have a recommendation for you for a new vice chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. We also sent a letter of support for the City of Modesto's grant application to update their telemetry system, and we also received a report from Todd Groundwater on water level measurements for 2022-2023, and you'll get that information when we update you on the annual report. And then just this week we met, again, this is the main event tonight, we met to find out about the Department of Water Resources review of our sustainability plan that they found us incomplete. We have a couple of things we have to work on and to address those deficiencies, and so that recommendation is before you as one of the action items. And just as I normally do, I try to update you on the well permit applications. As you know, the GSA has to recommend approval of new well permit applications in Stanislaus and Merced County, where they are within the jurisdiction of the West Turlock GSA. Since May of last year, we've received 22 well permit applications. They seem to be dying off a little bit. There were 15 from Stanislaus County and 7 from Merced County. So that's my update. Any questions for me?
Questions for Mr. Clipper?
And those were all ag well permits up there?
Yeah, the question was all ag well or?
Yes. So a couple of things. We don't review domestic wells. This is small wells for ranchette parcels. Municipal wells inside municipalities are not subject to the ordinance, so they don't get reviewed either. They're primarily ag wells. Many of them are ag replacement wells. So these are older wells that aren't producing as before, and so they're relatively straightforward. And as you remember, your guidelines require that new wells are only approved where people have access to surface water, and they maximize use of the surface water first to reduce the impacts on the aquifer.
Any additional questions? All right. Thank you, Michael. Okay, moving along. The consent calendar. So the information on the consent calendar was provided to the board in their packet. We will not have any discussion on the 2 items unless someone chooses to pull one of those and have a separate discussion. But I'll ask for any questions right now in general on the consent calendar. Okay, seeing none, then I would entertain a motion for approval.
Let's do the consent calendar. Second.
Okay. I have a first by Mr. Chiesa, a second by Mr. Espinoza. This does include a resolution. For that reason, do we need a roll call, Ms. Land? Okay, let's do that, please.
Alternate Director Abram?
Yes.
Alternate Director Casey?
Yes.
Director Chiesa?
Yes.
Director Croker?
Yes.
Director Espinoza?
Yes.
Director Ochoa?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Juritsma.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item G, agenda items. Item 1, GSP determination and recommended action to address the deficiencies.
Thank you again, Chair Juritsma. I'm going to introduce Liz Elliott from Todd Groundwater, who's going to do the heavy lifting on this item. But as I mentioned at the end of January, the Department of Water Resources did determine that our sustainability plan was incomplete, had a couple of deficiencies that we need to work on. So Liz is going to go over what those deficiencies are and develop a roadmap for us to make sure within 180 days of the date of that letter, we amend our GSP, get that back to them, and provide them a GSP that meets their standards. So over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Michael. Can you guys hear and see me? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you. My name is Liz Elliott with Todd Groundwater. Thanks so much for having me this evening. So I am going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to summarize what's in the determination letter from DWR, and I'm also going to provide an overview of our proposed scope of work that you have in your agenda packet. So in summary, as Michael indicated, we received a letter on January 18th from the Department of Water Resources, and they determined the Turlock Subbasin GSP to be incomplete. They included 2 deficiencies, and each deficiency had a corrective action. By law, the GSAs have 180 days to revise the GSP, and our due date for a revised GSP is July 16th. So, like I said, there are 2 deficiencies. The first deficiency indicates that the GSP does not provide sufficient information to support the selection of chronic lowering of groundwater levels sustainable management criteria. And the corrective action for this deficiency indicates that the GSAs must provide more detailed explanation and justification regarding the selection for the sustainable management criteria for the chronic lowering of groundwater sustainability indicator. What the department would like is to understand the impacts to beneficial uses and users from continued groundwater level declines from the MTs to the IMs. They would like the GSAs to conduct an impact analysis that identifies the anticipated number and location of wells that may go dry during the period of time in which the subbasin will be operating below these MTs. So the proposed approach will be to conduct a well impact analysis relative to both the minimum threshold groundwater elevations and the interim milestone groundwater elevations. And I'll go into a little more detail on that when I go through the proposed scope of work. The second part of this corrective action, there are 3 parts to the first corrective action. This is the second part. Indicates that the GSA should describe how impacts to wells experienced at the IM levels below the MTs will be managed or mitigated. And so what they would like is development of a well mitigation plan. And this is going to be based on the analysis that's done in the first part, the well impacts analysis, and the questions and issues to consider during development of this well mitigation plan include what types of wells will be included, how many, how will well owners report dry wells to the GSAs, how will the GSAs investigate reports of dry wells, will these dry wells be mitigated by the GSAs, under what circumstances, and if so, how? About how many are anticipated to be eligible for the program. And then there are funding information that the department wants. They'd like to know the estimated costs and the funding sources for the well mitigation plan. When we met, we had our initial consultation meeting with Department of Water Resources last week. And based on experience that we've had in other subbasins correcting GSPs, where the department has asked for similar well mitigation plans, it's our understanding that these big questions of funding sources and estimated costs, these are policy questions that are going to take time and stakeholder input to develop. And so we confirmed with the state that it would be okay to not have this complete in the 180 days. So what this means is that the well mitigation plan can get started, and there needs to be an implementation schedule and a timeline and a commitment to finishing it. But questions like the costs and the funding sources, it's recognized that those are going to take more than 180 days to figure out. And so not those like financial questions don't need to be figured out within the 180 days, as long as the GSAs commit to and promise to finish the implementation plan, the well mitigation plan. And then so moving on, the third part of the first corrective action indicates that the GSA should revise the GSP to include an analysis describing whether or how managing the subbasin to allow groundwater levels to drop to the IM levels that are below the MTs will avoid causing undesirable results for other sustainability indicators. So the GSAs need to analyze how groundwater levels at the IMs will affect other sustainability indicators, such as land subsidence, degradation of groundwater quality, and depletion of interconnected surface water. So moving on to deficiency number 2. Deficiency number 2 states that the GSP does not include sufficient details of projects and management actions to mitigate overdraft in the subbasin or provide a feasible path to achieve sustainability. And before I start going into the details of this one, this is the big lift of the two. The first corrective action and the analysis that needs to be done is primarily a technical analysis, plus the well mitigation plan. This is the big lift of this GSP revision, because what the state would like in the corrective action for this deficiency is to revise the GSP to provide specific details of feasible projects and management actions that will be implemented to mitigate overdraft and that will raise groundwater levels from the IM levels towards the MTs and measurable objectives in order to achieve sustainability. There are 2 parts to this corrective action. The first part indicates that the GSA should revise the GSP to include a reasonable means to arrest groundwater level declines and stop overdraft that is continuing to occur in the subbasin. Specifically, the GSA should describe feasible, effective, proposed projects and management actions that are commensurate with the level of understanding of groundwater conditions in the subbasin and provide sufficient details for department staff to be able to clearly evaluate how the plan's projects and management actions will ensure achieving the sustainability goal. So in the determination letter, the state indicates that they don't think the GSP includes sufficient details of or commitment to implementation of projects and management actions in order to arrest groundwater level declines and mitigate overdraft. So the approach to responding to this is that we need more detailed information about projects and management actions. We need a commitment to projects and management actions with planning level estimates of engineering, economics, and financial feasibility and schedule of implementation. This will need to include a timeline for implementation of these, a description of the projects and management actions that are underway, and if a water supply project uses source water from either Tuolumne or Merced rivers, then the state would like an evaluation of the impacts of the project on the rivers and respective beneficial uses. The second part of this corrective action indicates that the GSA should revise the GSP to include a feasible collection of projects and management actions to raise groundwater levels to avoid undesirable results that would occur as a result of groundwater levels dropping below the MTs towards the proposed IMs. DWR indicates that the suite of projects and management actions must be sufficient to not only arrest overdraft, but also to address the temporary removal of groundwater and storage that occurs between the MT and the IM levels. And so the proposed approach here is to review and check the suite of projects and management actions that are already in the GSP. Based on this and the result of the work conducted for the first part of this corrective action, the GSAs may need to add additional projects or management actions to the GSP. And if additional projects or management actions are added or changes are made to the existing PMAs, then these must be simulated by the model in order to assess the feasibility of the PMAs and addressing the sustainability conditions in the subbasin. So that is a summary of the letter. I wanted to then move over to a discussion on the schedule, which I think is the next slide. Thank you. Let me just move this screen over. Okay, so this is the schedule that's included as part of our proposal for revising the GSP. The proposal we submitted is alongside our teaming partner, Woodard and Curran. They were a teaming partner on the GSP, and their primary responsibility was for model development, simulations, and the projects and management actions. So they will be heavily involved with this revision. So there, as you can see, there are 7 tasks. We assume in this proposal that the project begins today if the proposal is accepted. And the first task is to develop an approach and methodology. This is something that we have already started working on in discussions with the GSAs over the last few weeks since we got the letter. But the purpose of this is to kind of lay out the scope of work and the approach and the methodology to addressing DWR's concerns and revising the GSP in a technical memorandum and submitting it to the GSAs for review, just to make sure that the consultant team and the GSAs are all on the same page before we really dig in and do the technical work. The second part of this is the well impacts analysis, and this is to address corrective action number 1. This will include developing an inventory of wells in the subbasin. Will include all types of wells, irrigation, domestic, and municipal. And we will be doing a vulnerability analysis at both the MT level and the IM level. And so the way this works is we'll be comparing wells with known construction information to the groundwater elevations at the MT level and also the IM level, to see, for example, at the MT level, if a groundwater elevation is below, say, the base of the well, then that well is vulnerable or potentially dry. And we'll be doing the same analysis at the IM level. And the difference in the number of wells that are vulnerable or potentially dry at the MT or the IM level would be the impact to lowering the groundwater level below the MT. And we will be doing an impact evaluation based on that. We'll be looking at approximate numbers of wells, locations, types of wells that may be vulnerable or going dry. And we expect the focus of this to be on domestic wells since they are the most shallow and the most vulnerable in the subbasin. Task 3 is to develop a well mitigation plan. I already talked a little bit about that. Again, this is to begin a well mitigation plan and then to lay out a timeline and commitment to finish it and answer those financial questions that the state would like answered. And then task 4 is the sustainability indicator analysis. This is the last part of responding to corrective action number 1. And this is where we will be doing an analysis on the effect of lowering groundwater levels to the IMs on other sustainability indicators, such as land subsidence, water quality, and interconnected surface water. And task 5 is the big one. This is the analysis of the projects and management actions. This will primarily be conducted by our teaming partner, Woodard and Curran, and it will involve several steps. We'll be evaluating first the existing suite of PMAs that are in the current GSP. Be looking to refine details of those PMAs that are in the GSP. And we'll be, documenting any GSPs, any PMAs that are not potentially in the GSP already, and incorporating the analysis from existing model simulations to provide more details, more quantitative details about the PMAs in the suite. We are assuming there is an optional task that's not shown on the schedule, but it is shown in the proposal, that if new PMAs are introduced or if revisions to PMAs that are in the GSP are made, then additional model simulations will need to be run. This proposal, tasks 1 through 7, assumes that that additional simulations are not necessary. The additional simulations are part of the optional task. And so moving on to task 6, this is to revise the GSP. So we know from our meeting with DWR, we confirmed this with them last week, that a public review period is not necessary for the GSP revisions. So this means we don't need to go through a 90-day public review period. We don't need to respond to public comments. So our proposal is to provide a draft revised GSP by approximately mid-June, provide the GSAs a couple weeks to review, and then we will incorporate comments and finalize and submit the revised GSP by July 16th. And then the final task number 7, is project management and meetings. There are 3 different types of meetings here. The first is TAC planning group meetings, which are held monthly from February through July. We also assumed 3 joint TAC meetings towards the end of the schedule, May, June, and July, to present results once we have them. And we are also assuming 4 meetings with DWR. And like I said, we had our initial meeting with them a week ago, and this was an initial consultation meeting. And they expressed openness to meet with us however often we'd like, and also to answer questions by email or phone whenever we have them. But for the purposes of this proposal, excuse me, we assumed 3 additional meetings with DWR, and these will be meetings to discuss technical information and approaches and make sure that we have questions answered along the way, and we are doing the work sort of the way they would like us to. And then the revised GSP is submitted to DWR mid-July. So that is all I have. Thank you again. Do you have any questions?
I think the only question I was going to ask Liz, and you touched on it right there at the very end with those DWR meetings, was, you threw a ton of information at us with your presentation, but I think my thought is we just want to make sure that whatever we're doing to try and appease the state is in fact what they want. So are there other GSPs out there or GSAs out there that have had success where maybe our deficiencies are showing up, and can we, not to cheat off their notes, but can we take a look at their what they've done in order to make the state happy, or not the state, but to make DWR happy? And it sounds like we'll have that opportunity with those meetings, and DWR has told us that they're willing to work with us to make sure we get that right. So that was the only concern I had as you were going through everything. Otherwise, I think it sounds really good, but I'll open it up to questions from other board members.
So I guess my first thing will be a comment, and then I'll have a question. And I'm not surprised on our deficiency number 2. That was pretty obvious that this was going to happen, in my opinion. And number 1 is directly impacted by number 2. I think we kicked the can on some of the issues because we couldn't come to an agreement, and now it's going to get real. I think we're going to have to put something forward that is more legitimate. My question is on the projects management actions, all of these things that we have to go into more detail. Have we already started down those paths on most of these issues and we just didn't go far enough, or did we not address them at all?
That's a good question. I think we didn't go far enough. I think, the GSB has details of projects and management actions, but I don't think we went far enough. I don't think that, there was, I don't think there was a firm, commitment in the GSB to the timing of a lot of these. And I think this needs to be kind of using the existing tool, which is the model, and the same model that we use for the GSP, kind of reanalyze some of these and try to quantify them a little bit more. So I think the answer to your question is, there is good information in the GSP, and we just need to go further. And we need to dive back in and reanalyze some things.
And Chair Juritsma's comment is the most appropriate, that let's not reinvent the wheel. If there's a cheat sheet, find it. Save us some money.
Yeah, that's it's a really good point, because we actually, Todd Groundwater, we were not involved with the PASO GSP, but we were involved with the PASO corrections. And one of the corrections was a well impact analysis. And so we actually, that's a perfect example, because we've done that. And we have a methodology that was developed for the GSP correction that was presented to DWR during that correction process. And they were happy with it. And that the revisions were accepted. So we do have experience in other subbasins doing these types of corrections. And and I know Woodard and Kern does as well. So, yeah, we will borrow as much as we can.
Very good. Any other questions? Comments? Okay.
Just real quick. So
Yeah.
option 6, the additional modeling would just be for new PMAs if they're introduced, or?
Yeah. Liz, did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I was being asked or somebody else. Yes. So the optional task is for rerunning the model. So if there are new PMAs or substantial revisions to existing PMAs, the model is going to need to rerun to resimulate those changes or those new PMAs. And yes, that's what it's for.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification, Liz.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we are looking for an approval on this action item, and so I would entertain a motion at this time. Is that correct?
Got it.
Okay. Care to make that motion?
Sure.
Make the motion.
I've got a motion by Mr. Chiesa, a second.
A second.
I've got a second by Mr. Ochoa. It is a resolution, so Ms. Land, will you call the roll, please?
Alternate Director Abram?
Yes.
Alternate Director Casey?
Yes.
Director Chiesa?
Yes.
Director Crooker?
Yes.
Director Espinoza?
Yes.
Director Ochoa?
Yes.
Vice Chair Juritsma?
Yes. Okay, that passes. We will move on to item G2, appointment of the Technical Advisory Committee Officer Vice Chair. Mr. Cook.
Thank you again, Chair Juritsma. A couple of administrative items for you. So I'm the chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. The vice chair is Juan Alvarez from the City of Modesto. He's still with the City of Modesto, but some of his assignment, he's been reassigned some different duties and unable to attend anymore. And luckily we have Director Ochoa filling in at the TAC meetings. But that does mean we have a vacancy for vice chair. After discussion with the Technical Advisory Committee, we recommend that you appoint Michael Pitcock, who is the city manager for the City of Waterford, as the vice chair. He's always at our meetings. Kind of an interesting case. So he's with Waterford, but they operate the system for Hickman, which is an office inside our district. Very knowledgeable on utilities issues, particularly for cities and urban folks. And he's also engaged with the Modesto subbasin, so he has a good perspective from both subbasins. So we're recommending that the board approve Michael Pitcock as the vice chair of the Technical Advisory Committee.
Questions or comments for Michael? Mr. Pitcock is a great asset, so I think he will fill this void very, Very well. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Pitcock Vice Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Got a motion, a second? Second. We've got a motion and a second. We will just take a general vote on this one. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Item G3, Fair Political Practices Commission Statement of Economic Interests, Form 700.
Thanks.
Valerie,
Valerie
how are you?
Kincaid, Council. Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. This is an exciting agenda item that I'm sure you guys all know about. But both the Fair Political Practices Commission and our bylaws as a special agency and joint powers authority require that you as board members and even as alternates fill out the Form 700 disclosure. It's a financial disclosure and it's for transparency reasons. Usually that doesn't come into play in our kind of JPA special practices work, but we still have to do it. So fill out those Form 700s. If you haven't seen them before, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We do not actually have to turn them in, but Ms. Land does have to hold them. And if we're audited, she needs to show that we have them in by April 1. So I know it's I have to do it too, and it's my least fun item that I do. But if people have questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks.
Great. Any questions for Ms. Kincaid on this? No?
If you're a walnut farmer, you have no assets.
Yeah. There's probably a lot of farmers that feel that way.
And I will follow up with an email to all of you that has some specific instructions and a link to the form, so we'll try to make it as easy as possible.
Perfect. I do want to ask really quickly if there's any public comment here in the building, online, anything, Ms. Land?
Still no hands raised.
Okay. Then we will move on to item H, comments from the board.
Let it rain and stay dry.
Yeah. I did have one comment. I was unable to attend the TAC meeting on Tuesday, but I do know that we had some quorum issues as far as getting some things looked at and passed at that TAC meeting. I know there was some concern for tonight. Just something that maybe either this board can touch on or the TAC can touch on is certain thresholds that maybe allows the chair or the vice chair of the TAC to take action should we not be able to get together or should we not have a quorum, just to make sure that in those situations, if it is something that needs to happen quickly, with a few phone calls to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this and maybe some head nods, we have that ability to get things through. So I don't know if that would happen at the TAC level first and then be brought back to us, but I just wanted to maybe put that out there and get your thoughts on that.
No, I do appreciate the timely reminder. Sometimes we can't take a formal action because we don't have a quorum, but we take the action anyway, then inform the board of what we did, and if there's any issues, we'll bring it up at a follow-up board meeting. So we can do that. A lot of the actions we take really are just belt and suspenders or just to make sure everybody knows, but it's in a public meeting. Sometimes we don't have a quorum, but most of the power in this organization rests with the board, so any big decisions get made with the board and are done officially. So I do appreciate that flexibility, and we'll keep you guys informed, particularly as Liz said, we got to July 16th to get this plan moving forward. So there will be times we just have to keep moving and then come back for follow-up approvals and stuff. But again, please remind your staff who are appointed to the Technical Advisory Committee, please attend those meetings. They are very important.
Very good. Any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, we are going to adjourn to closed session at this time, and I believe, Ms. Land, we will remain in this this room?
Yes, absolutely. Just give us a few minutes to secure the room, and then we'll make sure that the audio and video is turned off, and then anyone that needs to leave the room during closed session, so just give us a couple minutes to do that.
Great. I will wait for you to tell me that we're good to go. Thank you. We'll adjourn the closed session at 6:35.
It says I'm not coming in. Oh, listen to this.
Great. So just the report out of closed session, staff was updated, and there is no action taken in closed session at this time. So if there's not anything else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.